I am an expert in the front end, right? But I'm also the back of the front end, right? Like how do you build front ends? How do you build multiple front ends? How do you know, so it's about like the back of the front. Like I build the testing suite that the front end goes on. I build, the GraphQL API that those go on. So, and I also do a lot of the Kubernetes and a lot of the containerization and a lot of the cloud stuff as well. Throughout my career, it's been the level of building framework. I mean, I do build applications. But I've had more success building frameworks that build applications.
Yeah, we don't give enough credit for people that build frameworks, right? It's like templatizing the way that you should be doing things. Follow this template, your success rate will increase higher, and then if anything needs to be changed in the template, we'll change it so everybody else gets advantage of it. So I always loved frameworks, and frameworks them being like a foundational thing in terms of just skills development. Welcome. What up, D?
Yeah.
D Hustle, my guy, holding
What's
it
going
down.
on?
Guess where we at, man?
The Big Apple.
The Big Apple, NYC. We holding it down.
Weather's good. Weather's real good right now.
And we right on 42nd Street, Times Square, right
And
outside
Broadway.
the window. Let's
Shout
go.
out
42nd and Broadway. Big shout outs to everybody out here in New York City. We got a special guest for us today.
Who we got?
Michael Frohberg. Have you heard of that cat before?
I like him already.
Let's bring him to the stage already. Michael, welcome to Backstage with BobbyD.
Hello.
Thank
you so much for inviting me.
Oh my gosh.
Very glad to be here.
Definitely want to make sure that everybody can hear your voice, because my man used to kill this audio game here and then get into tech afterwards. We got a story to tell. But Michael, man, thank you so much for pulling up.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
To, engage with your, with your audience and everybody like that. And,
Thank you.
And then we got D Hustle in the cut, right?
Yes,
D Hustle always holding it down.
There we go.
But Michael and I has had the pleasure of being introduced by Patat, right? On LinkedIn.
Shout out to Patat.
For sure. And the situation is that we in NYC, I told y'all to pull up because we're going to have a pop-up location for the podcast. And my guy's name came through and I was like, yo, let me see what Mike got on his plate, see if we can get onto his schedule, see how,
The credentials looking fire.
Yeah, I was like, yo,
fire,
we got to get Michael on our show. So thank y'all so much for pulling up. And we're going to hear Michael's story. So to kind of kick this off, tell us a little bit about how you got into tech and how this all started for you.
Sure enough. I think to start talk about tech, I have to go backwards a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Right?
Kill the dog was,
Yeah.
But no, I would say I started my career as a kind of adult working in television production, and film production and what have you. So I worked on things like Top Chef, Project Runway, Making the Band, Apprentice.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one alone.
We'll definitely leave that one alone.
I'm still under NDA for that. I can't say anything about what I heard or didn't hear. But yeah, so basically working in television, it was a great job. I was very happy to do it. But I got really kind of interesting enough, the iPhone came out and I was like blown away by it at the time. And so my thought was to do, I wanted to make apps. I was very much interested in that world. And, I was like jailbreaking phones and all the craziness because I was, so that was my doorway and my sort of, my door into tech, I would say, is through mobile. And so the first thing I did, while I was working on set, with I had a bag on my chest, with gear. And on top of that, I had my iPad. And I started going to school. I went to school for mobile development.
That's what's up.
At Full Sail University. And it was interesting. I was definitely happy for it, but I just didn't feel like it was going to, at the time, really move because I felt like I needed to get into the game sooner.
He was like, yo, they moving too slow. We need to get this thing going, right?
This 3-year thing isn't happening for me. So I decided to get the degree. And then kind of throughout the process of getting a degree, discovered that there were boot camps. This was the very first generation of boot camps. And so I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And let me look into this. And I did look into it. And I ended up signing up for the 5th web development immersive Rails camp. That they had like that. Before that, they were still doing a lot of kind of not Sorry, one second. They were doing a lot of like startup kind of integration stuff. At GA, but first where that was kind of the focus.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, they had classes there.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And so when I got that, it was the first sort of cohort. Of the classes. So I was very early in boot camp world. And that immediately turned around into a job for me. It was crazy. I did the project that they asked me to do. And then we had like a science fair kind of thing. Where we did our project,
show and tell type stuff.
And then 2U happened to be there or whatever. And I ended up getting a job at 2U.
Give him a round of applause. And big plug here, because we're dropping gems here, is showing skill set development, not just from educational, supplemental education is the key thing, right? And boot camping, vocational schools, technical schools is the avenue that I got through too, was through technical school. Definitely has those genuine experiences, because you're going to be developing the skills hands-on, and then you get to show and tell, and then you get a job opportunity right there. So definitely big shout outs to you, Michael, for
shout out to his success,
making that transition, and definitely big shout outs to the boot camp for making that available to you.
I think my path, kind of going through through tech started off. Interestingly enough, I had done that full stack development thing. I got hired as a UX developer. Which was like, what is this?
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I think that was probably one of the best things that I could have possibly have gotten involved in and gotten, at the beginning of my career. Doing so enabled me to sort of start by like building frameworks, building, always kind of throughout my career, it's been the level of building frameworks. I mean, I do build applications. But I had more success building frameworks that build applications.
I even like the way that you did drop that, because you said building frameworks to build applications, because I don't think we take enough, or we don't give enough credit for people that build frameworks, right? It's like templatizing the way that you should be doing things. Follow this template, your success rate will increase higher, and then if anything needs to be changed in the template, we'll change it so everybody else gets advantage of it. So I always loved frameworks, and frameworks them being like a foundational thing. In terms of just skills development, is something that's extremely impactful. So big ups to you, really embracing that concept around frameworks, rather than continue to pursue the idea of, hey, I'm going to create this app, versus creating a framework that you can make all of those apps on. So big ups to you. I'm wondering why Michael don't have his own company yet, right?
It's in the works. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Several phases of development.
For sure. That's what's up. So what year was this that you started off boot camping, getting your first opportunity? When was that?
2013.
Yeah, that was a really good year. Yeah, 2013, the industry itself was very popping, right? That's still very active. A lot of opportunities in terms of skill set wise to really make leaps and bounds into bigger companies, and rather than startup scene, which is kind of like what we had that iteration afterwards, because then startups start to come out like crazy. But did you ever get a chance to make it out to the West Coast at all during your time?
Yes, actually, I did. I worked for a company. Infosys, that's the name of the company, right? They owned another company called Scava that was an e-com company that was based out of San Francisco.
Oh, that's what's up.
So, I went there multiple times, kind of, because that was our base of operations.
Yeah.
Even though I was in New York, we still had to go there for various things. I'm trying to think, there's a couple other things I've done there as well, kind of conference or whatever. But I've been out there, I haven't, and my friend was at Facebook, so in Menlo Park.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. You were saying that they kind of inspired you to get into tech in some form or phase, or was that something else?
I had basically a cousin, or kind of black cousin.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're related.
He's my cousin too. We know what's up here.
So I had who was kind of ahead of the game. Like he was. Involved at Facebook early on, and I ended up being able to exit out very nicely.
Yeah.
From when it was before it was public.
Yeah.
So he was somebody that when I was thinking about this, I kind of don't use him too much in a way. But at that time I was like, hey, I'm looking to figure out what's the best kind of entry in right now.
Yeah.
I'm sort of doing this thing right now, and he was like GA, and I was like bet. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And I immediately made I took his advice to heart, and.
Yeah, story to tell today.
The rest is history.
The rest is history, yeah. And then that's always a good thing in terms of when you have those family members. A lot of people reach out to me also, and sometimes there's some hesitation to reach out. But for me, I'm like, yo, just come and ask me a question. I can just give you just a little bit of this sauce here, and you're going to be gone, right? And it's always great inspiration to hear, like, the other side of that. Like, it was just a little bit of giving. Definitely turned out to be a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of, access, and definitely development and knowledge is something that's so inspiring. Facebook back then, it was Twitter and Facebook were fighting like this. That time and era, man. I remember actually had a coworker of mine that left Twitter to go to Facebook and came right back to Twitter. It was like, no, hell no, I can't work over there. It's just something about the fighting that we've always had that it doesn't matter. He's still viewed as a tweet over there. So I was like, all right, come back home. We always welcome you anyway. But it's always interesting to hear how the Silicon Valley competition in terms of engineering really help influence the industry too, because we're definitely going to be talking about some tech a little bit later. But in terms of your skill set, so you're mostly on the front end side, right?
No.
No? I apologize.
No, it's okay. I would say that I am an expert in the front end, right? But I'm also the back of the front end, right? Like how do you build front ends? How do you build multiple front ends? How do you, so it's about like the back of the front. Like I build the testing suite that the front end goes on. I build, the GraphQL API that those go on. So, and I also do a lot of the Kubernetes and a lot of the containerization and a lot of the cloud stuff as well. So I would say like I'm most known for that because I've spent the most amount of time in it. Yeah. But a lot of what I've been doing lately has been broader than just that. It's more full stack.
Yeah. Michael said, yo, don't put me in a corner.
I'm trying to get a job right now. I'm selling my Wi-Fi experience.
Basically, he's saying he's international. Shout out to
him. He said he goes from one side of the infrastructure all the way to the other side. Michael guys,
don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on him.
Yeah.
Around again.
My bad, Michael.
No, I didn't mean to be like,
No. But the thing is that the skill set wise, it's always really great to hear engineers step into that, right? Because some engineers will only stay in that specific lane and be like, yo, I only mess with front end, JavaScript, TypeScript, don't talk to me about anything else, rather than what's needed in the climate that we're in right now is broader skill sets, right? And upskilling, right? It's like, hey, yeah, I only used to do front end, but I know how the middleware works. I know how the back end infrastructure works. And that thing you call cloud that everybody's kind of mysteriously about, I know how that works. So definitely big shout outs to you in terms of just, broadening the scope. Calling me out like, yo, whose podcast is this again? Like, yo, don't put me in this corner like this. But the cool thing is that it's just really gonna help our audience be mindful of like, hey, skill set wise, keep the spectrum broad, right? Especially during the climate that we're in, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that came out of one of the companies I worked at, Scava, the Infosys company, was that we had the front end, but because of the front end was in Node, and I also kind of go back. I'm a Node person. From the first job I was talking about, Node.js was like, and using Grunt and using all the other stuff was how I kind of got my JavaScript and Node things in there. And I would say, as a result of that, when I went to that company, we were building up this kind of React kind of server side rendering stack. Yeah, and nobody other than us knew how to do that. So they were like, "We're going to need you to spin this up, and figure out how this all works. What the how to scale it horizontally or vertically, what it actually entails to do it. And then we're also using this thing called Kubernetes. Learn it. I had to learn it in 3 weeks. And then from there, I've known Kubernetes.
Kubernetes. Big shout outs to Kubernetes. And
it's great.
And we've had a few episodes here on the podcast talking about Kubernetes and talking about containerization. It's actually one of my expert skill sets, right? That's kind of like my box that I check is building infrastructure at hyperscale, because that's what I did at Twitter, is build one of the world's largest compute clusters, not running Kubernetes, but running a software predecessor to Kubernetes, which is called Mesos and Aurora. So it's almost like Google released this product, not released it, but they talked about a white paper on Borg. I don't know if you've ever heard their orchestration system.
That name sounds familiar. Yeah.
And then once they did Borg, they were going to make Kubernetes, but there was a grad students from Berkeley that started working at Twitter recreating Borg, and then that's what we got not stuck on, but that's what we started to develop. Unfortunately, in these races, 2 products come out. One of them is going to come out on top. And unfortunately, Aurora Mesos didn't really make the cut, and everybody moved to Kubernetes. And then that's where we are right now, where everybody's taking advantage of this technology because it does allow you to scale horizontally, right? Massively, right? I mean, one of our compute clusters, we ran over like 500 containers with just one cluster, right? And that was one of our limitations why we couldn't move to Kubernetes because it couldn't scale that way. But there's definitely headwind that's heading in that direction, and it's always good to hear industries picking up these technologies that really will change the game for them. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So if the broad spectrum in terms of full stack, what is your programming language then?
I would say my primary programming language is JavaScript or TypeScript.
Yeah.
So if I can do Node, I will do Node.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. Not whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I always have to use it anyway. If I'm using the front end. So I would say that's been the most, because it's what do you call it? Isomorphic.
Yeah.
You can write on a server and write on a client. Yeah. And because of that, I think it allows more developers to do more things. Yeah. If we're using say a Node stack or whatever, then everyone's full stack. Kind of. Even though they're used to one thing, it can still utilize the same.
Yeah. That's usually
language.
The same language so that you can cross-platform in terms of reviewing code, get code changed, and things like that. So I've heard TypeScript is really making headwind on this scene here. So how do you feel about TypeScript?
I think TypeScript is incredible. Obviously there are probably anybody could argue about, but I think it's basically made JavaScript into Java. I mean, yes, I know it's not really that because it doesn't compile or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that it's really good because it has brought type safety, or at least the idea of type safety, into sort of the front end. Yeah. And in doing so, I think even in the middleware layer, I think it's allowed us to be able to basically make things a little bit easier to test. Yeah. Even sometimes not having to write unnecessary tests because we know that the shape of the data, correct, will be the shape of the data anyway. So I think it's kind of made it easier to test. Because of that, we have to write less tests as a result of it. And then also, I think it has made, I think just generally speaking, development better with regards to things like type safety, understanding how shapes of these things operate through our system and these objects, how they work. Yeah. And I think, even in particular with React, it's made things a lot better in terms of what are we passing into this, into this method or into this, what have you. So I think that's been very. Yeah. I mean, there's other things as well, but I think largely, the ecosystem around it is very helpful. They do a lot of, updates. And I think just in general, having people think about interfaces and types and these kind of things, anywhere along the stack, is better and safer.
I was talking to another guest we had here. What up, Sebastian? What's going on, player? We appreciate you pulling up. And he was also making some, great evaluations of the value around TypeScript compared to JavaScript. And more or less becoming close to the norm in the industry when you're looking for jobs. Is that one of the skills that they're looking for? But more specifically around types, it's always kind of, so I'm more Python, right? So data types, we really don't care, but we got to write code that blocks code or blocks those invalid data types. And what you find is a lot of new engineers don't actually write code like that. They're actually not looking at type inside of their function or method, but they're just expecting it to be received. And that's one of the buggier things about Python is that you can pass in anything and not really define the types. They have helpers to kind of let you know what is expected as input and output, but there's really no blocking code to actually say, hey, you sent me the wrong crap. Here goes the exception, go figure it out type stuff. So, but I'm finding out that even the more structured programming language like Java or even Golang being really standing on that, you find out why it's important to include it. For me, I never even cared. I was like, yo, my function works. I don't care what you send, right? And then, like you said, I used to have to write even more tests just to validate the data type and what would happen if you gave me some bad data type. So great ideas, and thank you for bringing that to the table in terms of just things to be mindful of when you're choosing a programming language. And, hey, TypeScript is the new kid on the block, so I'm hoping everybody picks it up and sharpens it up. Yeah.
it's been helpful, and particularly in building libraries.
Yeah. My guy say, I only build frameworks and libraries. You use my stuff. I don't use your stuff.
I build apps that build apps.
Facts. Like it. So in terms of like one thing that I think when I first checked out your LinkedIn is just skill wise, you're definitely at the higher level of senior engineer, right? There's
shout out to that.
Big shout outs, right? There's like level 1, there's interns level 1, level 2, sometimes a level 3 before you get to senior. Then you got the staff, principals, and then distinguished engineers. And you're sitting definitely at the staff principal level,
yes.
Which has had some requirements for you to be in a leadership role. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think, a lot of what I'm asked to do when I come, for work, it is definitely to provide sort of, mentorship is one element of this, right? Sort of like helping the engineers kind of level up, and then secondarily, kind of working as like a tech lead and sort of like, like maybe person who at some companies, I'm the only one who can sign off on certain things.
Yeah.
So some of that is like, kind of like having to do that piece. What I've really enjoyed, in terms of it depends on where you're working, how much of, say, IC versus like management that you're doing.
Yeah.
And also whether or not the management I'm doing is actually related to, it is like, am I doing one-on-ones? Am I doing these kind of things?
Yeah.
For career stuff? And I think like generally I've kind of avoided that part of it and kind of was more of a tech lead.
Yeah.
And then mentor. And then, there were direct reports I have had. Interestingly enough, my first direct reports were at a company called understood.org. And basically they were so happy to get me to come on because they were going to be working with a team called Andela, which is in Africa, Africa accelerator. And like they basically, you hire people from the Andela.
Yeah.
And they come from different places like Africa and Kenya.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because it gave me a chance to sort of work with people, our people, for the first time. And they were such great engineers. I had an opportunity to work with, and we were able to kind of. There was a lot of feedback that I was able to give, and they were very. I think some of them are on my. I think most if not all of them are written recommendations for me.
I see some recommendations like 2-3 paragraphs where I was like, damn, Michael's killing it out here.
So I think, what they would probably say was that I was very giving. Yeah. In terms of like, like opportunities, like, sort of like I gave them ownership. Yeah. And I think, in a lot of ways, ownership is really important to engineers. Yeah. So if you give them, here's your thing, here's your slice. Yeah. And we'll work on that. But like, I think that was important. Ownership, sort of giving ownership generally speaking, not just with that group, but, giving people ownership was an important aspect of that for me. Yeah. I did a lot of pair programming. It's kind of a huge part.
Yeah, I love peer programming. Yeah.
So that's been that was, and I do that even at my last job. Lots of my jobs, like that's kind of like I'll do a deep dive in a bug, and that's kind of what they bring me up, like either bug fixing, these kind of things. But like, I think working with teams of people, there's lots of different ways in which we do that. I think, but ultimately, when things are broken up into smaller chunks. I help them create their tickets, at least earlier on, so they have an understanding of what, a chunk of work looks like and what should be expected instead of it, being, within the sort of the time span, you don't want to give somebody too much, too little. So sort of understanding like that aspect of things.
He's on fire. I like it.
I definitely want to give you a chance to speak on, especially for our audience, because our audience are mostly underrepresented. And even when I was describing the levels, right, from senior to staff and principal, there's not that many of us at that type of level, right? And first of all, congratulations on being able to, make those type of impact and leading engineers and giving them the gems, the sauce in terms of how to be successful. But tell us a little bit about, some of your challenges of being probably one of the only black, team lead, staff engineers, or principal engineers that you've encountered.
That's a good question. I think probably people not taking me, like necessarily taking me seriously or thinking somehow that because of who I am, I must know less. I mean, I'm not sure that I've seen that specifically, like, somebody been very like, hey, but like, I think, just kind of noticing that, like, people are like, they're trying to, they're going to want to question you more, and push back on things more. Than I have seen them do with other people.
Facts.
So I don't know, I expect it. It's sad to say, but like, I just kind of expect certain things. And so I don't I try not to make a noise about it. Because that's not going to help me anymore. Yeah. Unfortunately.
And let me tell you, it's definitely an honor to, talk to another engineer that has climbed a level to get to there, because I know you've definitely had those more challenging conversations. First of all, to justify the role, right? And then also justify your voice when there needs to be a decision making. And it's something I had to deal with and also teach my counterparts, right? So I had a lot of obviously, more represented, background engineers that, were amongst my peer group, and they could see that from their own eyes in terms of how I was treated versus them, right? And it definitely made it more easier for me to get them to be more empowered in their responses and supporting me to grow and develop. Big shout outs to, those engineers, Demaji, what's up, Santos, Frank. And those engineers definitely wanted to make sure that I wasn't somebody left behind because of that, and definitely opened the lanes for us. But there still isn't enough. There still isn't enough of us around to see it. And definitely this job market that's coming up will unfortunately have even more of us on the sideline waiting. But in general, definitely big ups to your journey, big ups to becoming a staff principal engineer. Much respect. And he said, I build frameworks, I build apps on top of apps. Like, that's probably one of the hardest things. I might trademark that. Michael's gonna co-sign it.
And make sure you put TM on top of that.
All right. So one of the next things that I want to talk about is we kind of briefly talked about Kubernetes containerizations and some of the work that I've done. But there's this area that I think is opening up, and I'm not sure if you've been exposed to it as much as I want to dive into it, is around AI and machine learning operations, or ML ops. How do you feel about AI, number one? And have you done any work with it in terms of your roles as an engineer?
I'm very happy. AI is very interesting, obviously, because it can, quickly become. I wrote AI that wrote code. Ready. So I was like, damn, I already replaced somebody. No. That's not okay. But I do think that it's obviously it's here to stay. And I've had some interesting experience with it as well. At Wayfair, where most recently was employed, we had a hackathon sponsored by Google and Wayfair together on generative AI, and they gave us the toys. We had all the toys. We had all the LLMs, we had all the different things, and there was this hackathon that they wanted, to say, hey, how can we increase or do something cool with Wayfair business, and so I sort of pitched the idea of creating automated code review for AI. So this was, basically what we did was we trained a model on the React documentation and a lot of different code base, sort of our code bases. Yeah. And, the validated it by, creating a PR, kind of going through a process. So it was more than just AI generation, but it was also AI generation in the process of Git kind of checking and stuff.
Yeah, creating a pipeline.
Yeah, pipeline, exactly. Yeah. And so part of a pipeline was that we would, basically it would take in the code and basically say, well, this is not good, this is okay. Yeah. And so the code review would, I think in our case, we used React. We basically had some bad kind of things that would not be okay, in terms of how we do it, and then it was able to recognize, essentially, various different, whether or not it was good or not.
Yeah.
So yeah,
almost like a scoring system or something like that, or it actually line by line.
I would say a bit of a scoring system in essence, a little bit, but more at this point, line by line.
Yeah,
what we're trying to accomplish at the level that we did for the hackathon.
Yeah,
we were actually. Well, before I left, we were actually building that out.
Oh, that's what's
so
up.
that was the real thing. So it's one thing for what we did do, which was kind of a proof of concept. And so creating proof of concept using AI has been really interesting. I've even been using it in my job search. Using tools that allow me to take the JD or job description and then change my resume based on the job description.
Oh, that's awesome. Give him a round of applause right there. Yeah, that's using the AI to its full potential. And in my opinion, it's definitely something we cover on our show all the time. And I tell, our subscribers, my mentees, that y'all need to follow along, but not just follow along. Y'all need to touch it, experience it so that you can see how it's going to force multiply you as an individual, but also the things that you're working on too. Is find the right place for it.
I'm also finding that it's good for writing code.
Yeah.
And sort of just maybe getting out like a basic structure or something, and then kind of going through and figuring out what the problem is.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be one problem. You're like,
for sure.
It's like inverted
Well,
semicolon or something is done.
Starting from a blank sheet of paper is always one of the toughest things for me too, and that's why frameworks are so great. That's why they're so great, because frameworks for me, my starting point is, how do I use this frameworks? Oh, I need to create these interfaces. I need to do this. All right. Start that, boom, we're there, right? That's why I've always enjoyed frameworks, because starting from scratch has always been difficult for me.
Certainly.
That's what's up.
I'm a framework, friend of frameworks.
He said, I got you. All right. So one other thing that I wanted to throw out there, Michael, real quick, is we at our show have really honed in supporting the next generation of engineers that are coming out that looks like me and you. And more or less just wanted to give you an opportunity to reflect and give some advice on like what they should be working on, especially the young professionals, in terms of developing so that they can get their first opportunity potentially in the tech industry.
Sure. I think one of the things that's been very helpful for me is kind of keeping up to date with what's going on, whether that's, frameworks, whether that's the latest update to, API that you're using or these kind of things. But I think it's important, as you're kind of coming up to have a culture of learning. I know a lot of developers that have been like, I'm not, they kind of get to that point where they don't want to learn anything new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you've seen them before. They always kind of like, I don't want to change frameworks, I don't like this. But it's like that. I get that you want to keep things,
status quo.
You don't want to. You want to keep things from constantly changing because a lot of people get caught in that sort of like, oh, what's the next thing we can do? What can we do? What can we do?
Yeah.
Particularly more junior engineers who are in senior positions.
Yeah.
But
this is a new toy that just came out.
Exactly. So it's important, I think, to understand that and respect that, but also, always be learning. I think it's important. I think as people of color, look, I'm going to say it. Like, I was taught from a young age that I have to go, twice as far to get half, whatever, go.
Yeah.
That one, that statement, how do you go? But so you're going to have to be that. People are going to be looking at people with extra eyes, so you can't. I think you got to just keep yourself straight, and, because otherwise people are going to automatically put you in a box. And I hate to say it, but you have to kind of code switch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the industry unfortunately is making a shift back towards where that's going to be norm, right? It was like diversity inclusion was really popping, and now companies are dropping diversity inclusion like it's nothing, and it's more or less going to force us to have to do that code switching back to what it was.
Yeah.
But definitely appreciate the kind words for our audience, because I don't think enough of us get a chance to talk and tell about these small things like love to learn. Like, you're going to have to learn. Like, hey, the climate we in, you might have to code switch, right? And just hearing it straight up is always something that I appreciate my guests coming through and dropping. So thank you so much for that.
You're going to learn today.
Yeah, you're going to learn today. You're going to learn today. Awesome. So the next thing I wanted to give you a chance is talk about any recent projects you got going on. Anything I believe you might be in the market right now, but what do you got going on in your current phase in your journey?
Sure. I think, kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Like actually getting out there more, talking to people, doing talks and that kind of thing.
A big shout out to come to the Tech Hustle podcast. My guy, he says, yo, if I got to do it, I got to do it here.
So yeah, I think my content creation and being able to sort of create a space for that as well, which you're in the same space. So,
yeah.
Kind of providing, I think that providing an opportunity, a place and a forum through content to be able to do this. So I'm kind of just working out what that looks like.
Yeah.
Where that is, I haven't, I've been on TikTok and doing my own thing for a long time. So, but I'd rather, kind of separate that out because that's a different thing. So.
Yeah. But hey, we're going to have Michael's links all in the description below. I need y'all to like, subscribe, follow anything and everything he's touching because my guy got some knowledge and experience that you just do not find every day. Like, I had to go look at my Rolodex to find him, and I had to get on his schedule, right? So definitely make sure you follow along. So we're getting close to the tail end of our conversation here, and I didn't give you a prep for this, but this is the chance for you to ask BobbyD anything. We're hanging out backstage with BobbyD, so if you have anything or any questions on the top of your mind that you want to ask, feel free to throw them out. If not, we're going to be wrapping it up soon. So what's up, Michael?
So I would love to know, first of all, were you at, X when Elon was there at the end of that, or did you manage to get out before the shitstorm?
And thank you for describing it like that, because that's exactly what it was. Actually, a guest that we had in the show right before yours, I mentioned to him that I've been off of Twitter for one whole year. Actually, yesterday was marked the day. So I boycotted Twitter since the name changed for exactly 1 year. I got back onto it last night for the first time, and oh my gosh, the platform looks totally different. And
lots of echoes.
if you didn't notice, advertising is their main thing, because that's the first thing that popped up at the top. So Elon's trying to catch a check. But anyways, so I was at Twitter for almost a decade, almost 10 years. It was about 9.5 years. And then, like I said, I worked as a staff engineer there, becoming a site reliability engineer. My background is more in systems engineering, so all of that cloud infrastructure stuff, I was there since day one, from building computers to putting them on the internet, installing hypervisors. Kubernetes as a concept around containerization is something that I've seen developed under my own eyes type stuff. So I've really seen that progression in tech, and a lot of that was developed at Twitter. Also, another skill set I have is I'm kind of dual skilled, so I'm a software engineer too. So I write mostly infrastructure code, mostly in Python, because it's very phonic, it's very easy to understand what's going on. And
they didn't get you into Golang with that?
They definitely tried to get me to Golang, but no, I was like, Python is it for me. But I will say Golang is the next, like a TypeScript. Like for JavaScript to TypeScript, I would say Python to Golang would be the next kind of transition, in my opinion. Especially being a more typed compiled programming language, lightning speed compared to the single-threaded Python, but that's another subject. It's still my preferred programming language. But during my time there, I worked on the compute platform team. So I basically was the technical lead for all of the cloud computing infrastructure there. So if you say AWS, I was a part of the team that built Twitter's internal AWS infrastructure.
So just to follow up on that. So Twitter has their own version of that?
Yeah. So that's the thing that most people didn't know. Twitter built data centers from the ground up. Under my management, I had more than 300,000 computers around the world that my team of 5 had to support and manage, running hundreds of thousands of containers, right, at scale. But yeah, we didn't mess with none of that because it was a hustle, right? It's like that became the new hustle is they charge you and then they upcharge you and they keep upcharging you. Why not just own your own hardware and then you build an engineering team that could support it? And that's what team that I helped lead to really just solidify that. They did start to run some cloud stuff, but when Elon got there, he's like, hell no, I'm not paying that bill. But so the reason why I tell you all this backstory is one of the cool things is being a tech leader in that organization that I was in is that we kind of heard things coming before they got there. So I remember I was in a meeting with a director one time, and he was like, hey, can you tell me how much money we spent here and what we did here and what we did there? And I was like, hold on. Only time this happens when we're about to be acquired. You want to know assets. You want to know this type of stuff. So I was coming to the end of my time there. I wasn't ready for a new regime change. And I was like, yo, I'm going to be out. And as soon as I left, at least 3 weeks later, that's when Elon was starting to pull up and the words was in the wind. I was like, oh, my gosh, thank you. I didn't have to go through that. But to answer your initial question, I got out right before he got there. So I didn't really have to go through that, but I had so many colleagues, unfortunately, I had to go through that shit show, just like you described it, in terms of the morale, the culture, the tech, and all of that back and forth that he created internally. Just it would have been a problem for me.
I guess I would love to ask you a question, and it's probably my last, necessary one.
Keep it on.
Keep it
in
coming,
terms of like how the market is right now, my question, I guess, would be how do you feel about this? Do you feel like this is way different? Because to me, it feels like, what the hell? I'm sending out 100 times more resumes than I ever had before.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've seen before? And then if so, like, what would you suggest for somebody?
Yeah.
Like strategy-wise for sort of getting, I guess, more resumes, the right people, or I just want to understand what you think about that.
Yeah,
shout out. That's a good question right there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thanks, D. You holding it down.
That's right.
Michael got some. He got them lined up.
He's got the heat. Oh, you came with fire, baby.
So I go back to when I first started in 2002 is when I first got into the industry, and I started off not as an engineer. I started off working at the help desk, so that was my way of getting in. But for me to get into that position, I actually had to almost switch a little bit because I started off being a systems administrator, and they were like, hey, you can be a help desk guy or you cannot have a job. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that help desk opportunities, and I'm going to level up that way.
Through IT?
Through IT, yeah. So I came up through help desk into systems administration and then the systems engineering, and then that's when I just went crazy, especially once I really started to level up my skills with Linux administration. But the key thing about that era during that time was that, number one, I had to be willing to switch it up a little bit, right? I had to be willing to say, hey, if I really wanted opportunities, I might not be this administrator right now, but I'm going to take this other job so that I can eventually play it out. The other thing that I would say in terms of the climate that we're in right now, and that's why I really enjoyed our conversation when I try to put you in the corner over there. You're just a front-end type engineer, and then you said, nah, fuck that. I'm more than that, right? That's what's going to get you the opportunity, is that you can upskill and have more than just software or front-end engineering as a skill set, but you can talk Kubernetes, cloud, you can talk CI/CD pipeline, you can talk back-end with Node, those are the things that are going to give you the upper hand against your competitors that are out there, peers and people that are looking for job opportunities. So showcasing those skills are going to be key for you to be recognized as more than just a front-end engineer. And that applies for anybody else that's in the industry, is broaden the scope a little bit, right? Make sure that you're upskilling and learning more than just what everybody says specifically for this. And then the third thing is, I don't think candidates spend enough time reading job descriptions to understand what skills jobs are looking for, right? I have a lot of my mentees be like, hey, yeah, I want to go and learn this. And I'm like, all right, so what kind of job you want? Oh, I want to go work there. All right, let's go to their website. These are the skills they're looking for. These are the skills you're developing, right? Make sure that they're aligned, and then that's going to open up those opportunities for you. So definitely for those that are on the market, keep at this hustle. It is a different climate. It's not the same as it was COVID time, 2020. People, dropping offers left and right. And it's going to be those that do the most, that do more, that reach out more, that cold call. Our era, we used to have to pick up the phone, D-Hustle, right? They're like, yo, can I speak to HR? Can I speak to the hiring manager? Can I speak to, right? We're going to have to do those type of things to really get there.
I miss those days.
Yeah, me too. But hopefully that answers your question, Michael.
Certainly. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're out there and you are looking for opportunities, our community's here to continue to support. Definitely holler at us here at the Tech Hustle, because we run a vibrant community and always looking to support you all and level up. I had to drop that plug in there just for a little bit. All right. All right, Michael, anything else before we close it out?
No, I think,
Oh, Michael had a good time. Turn that music up, D-Hustle. Let's see what we got going on. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Backstage with BobbyD. We got my guy, Michael Frohberg. Yeah, I took it slow.
Shout out to Michael.
Big shout outs to Michael Frohberg for coming through, hanging out with us today, dropping gems. Make sure y'all listen for that sound, rewind to it. I guarantee you there's going to be some knowledge that's being dropped. And definitely, we in these streets. We got a few more guests coming through. Next up, where are we going? To Houston next up? Yeah, so we got Houston on the track, and then you never know where you might find us at in the nation. But always come through here at the Tech Hustle. Holla at your boy. It's Bobby D.